scarcity, fear, or lack. Today's show is all about shifting from thoughts of not enough to thoughts of limitless potential, seeing wealth as something that flows and expands. Welcome to a bit of insight with me, Lisa Mosbey. Today's show is all about that sacred abundance, and I want you to find out what sacred abundance really means. And let me introduce our guest to talk about it. Anna Kowalska transforms paradigms by bridging practical approaches to success with holistic personal development, specializing in empowering others and redefining success in their own terms. Her methodology harmonizes strategic, emotional, and intuitive leadership principles to help professionals align their external accomplishments with their internal purpose. As a transformational coach and trainer, Anna offers a creative framework enabling her clients to design intentional, purpose-driven trajectories that honor professional excellence, soul alignment, and personal fulfillment. Welcome, Anna. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, Lisa. I'm so excited. Every time somebody reads my bio, I'm like, that's a lot. It's just a lot of words.
Yeah. And I always say, for me, I go, it feels like a eulogy. Like when people are, like how they eulogize you, they tell you of all the things that you've done. And so I try to come up with something funny now rather than, she pokes her finger through the toilet paper, just like everybody else, something silly and funny because I don't know if people care about our bio until they know what we do and what we talk about. So we should repeat that at the end of the show. So folks actually go, oh, I get it now. That's what she was talking about. But how do you define, the topic is sacred abundance. How would you define sacred abundance for our audience today?
Yeah. Oh, one of my favorite things to talk about. So it's connecting to the tangible that we have in a bank account, connecting it to the intangible. So connecting it to the energy, knowing that we are energy, everything is energy. Abundance is something that is here for us, that it's not something we have to earn, although there is an exchange. So whenever I say it's not something you have to earn, when I started to talk about it, people and me myself, I'm like, well, if I don't have to earn it, if it's just here by birthright, then I can just sit here and receive it. And it didn't work out very well. Exactly. It didn't work out very well because there is an exchange, there is an engagement that we are obligated to, that we are responsible for. So sacred means that I don't take it as something that's not available for me, that's only available for few. That's how I grew up, like people like us don't have that much. I grew up in that kind of environment. Only certain people had, if they're smart enough, if they have the right connections, if they grew up certain way, those are the people who have. So we get to be with, no, it's actually really available to everyone. And we live in times where a lot of people are proving it, that money is not just for the select few. Money is not just for, a lineage, a birth, a bloodline. It's really available for all of us. But at the same time, it's sacred, meaning that we do get to hold it with certain reverence. There is a certain way to be with it, so it can show up for us. So sacred abundance, I talk about sacred energy of money specifically because abundance could be in any area of life, abundance of joy and love and time and warm sun, like anything, right? But specifically money, because it's still the tool on planet Earth that we use to exchange something for something we want, something we have for something we want. So sacred means available to all, but also being reverent about it.
Beautiful. And I love that you transitioned us into money because it really is money. And in my intro, I said that it's about the ebb and flow. Like when we hold on to money, is that really treating it with that reverence, or is it treating it with scarcity, fear, and lack? And so much of our mindset, the thoughts that we have and the words that we speak about money affect whether it comes or goes, whether it flows or expands or it doesn't exist at all. So talk to me about that, like the energy of communication, language, words, and money, how it all ties together.
Oh, such a powerful place to go. So we know our words create. I know you know it. I'm sure your audience probably has heard it before from you. Our words create. There is you can put your, and this is so tangible. You can so tactile. You can put your hand on your throat. There is a vibration when we speak. So everybody
Yes.
like say your name, right? Because it's
Lisa
easy.
Mosby.
Yeah, you can hear the vibration. This vibration now goes out into the world and it vibrates. The energy creates something. I mean, to me, that's like it's how I get things, you know? I mean, I love playing in the unseen, but I'm also very practical. So I like to give practical examples for how it works. Because in our mind, I can say to people over and over again, words create. But when I do this exercise and I say, put your hand on your throat and say something, say your name, it's a vibration that now has everything is energy. There is no empty space. So now the energy of the words makes the little particles vibrate in a certain way. So if I say, I don't have enough, or I'm broke, or I don't have, or whatever else we say that indicates scarcity. And I'm sure, Lisa, you have heard your own share from people. I know I have. Yeah, and myself, absolutely. I mean, why do I do this work? Because I grew up in an environment that taught me a lot of scarcity. That's all I knew. So I'm like, oh, wow, there is this whole thing to learn about money on top of earning it, about how to be with it in a whole different relationship. So, speaking words, I still catch myself. And more so, I'm mindful of in any area of my life to not use words or phrases that indicate scarcity, but only speak from possibility. But it takes training. So, anytime we say something, like, I don't have enough, that's too much, it's too expensive, I can't afford it, maybe next month when I have enough, any of those things, we are literally activating particles of things in the energy in the field and saying, this is what I want to live in. This was what's going to fill my field, my environment. And then this is physics. The energy organizes itself in such manner that indicates that. I cannot say I am broke and have a lot of money in a bank account because eventually I will be broke because my external environment must indicate what I believe is true, what I say is true.
The
So,
saying we speak it into existence, right? I
yeah,
mean, there's
yeah.
that saying we speak it into existence.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
mentioned belief system or our BS, our belief system, right?
Mhm.
How does belief system? I think this is where you're going when I shared that thought.
Yeah,
Belief system versus the actual communication. The words that
yeah.
we have energy, and where are we going with that belief system about money?
Yeah. So, two parts to it. One, our words indicate our beliefs. So, I'm sure you play with this all the time with your clients where somebody says something and they could be telling me, well, actually, I don't believe that. No, no, you do because you just said it. So let's not pretend because we like to, especially when we're doing the work, when we are consciously in the world of working on ourselves. We begin to say, oh, I can't afford it. Wait a second, I'm not supposed to say that. But do say it in the moment. So just not saying it doesn't mean it's not there because your belief system actually is that you can't afford it. And in the moment when you weren't consciously speaking, you said what's true for you. So until you change the belief system, you could say something, but underneath it is not true. So, one, I speak and I create, but if my belief system isn't aligned with it, I may say, I love money, but underneath it, I'm like, oh no, I'm actually afraid of money. I love money. I love money. Now, what happens? I can say I love money, but the vibration actually says, but I'm afraid of it.
Yeah.
So it's not going to show up because I cannot create something I'm afraid of. Like, it's just not going to work like that. It just doesn't work like that. So when I say, you know what, I'm so grateful that I have enough. I'm so grateful that I have enough. This was one of my big lessons. I spent a season of my life where I would say, where I was already doing this work, I'm so grateful that I always have enough to pay my bills. I'm so grateful that I always have enough to pay my bills. And guess where I got stuck? Always having enough to pay my bills. And it didn't even occur to me until I said, why am I perpetually creating this environment where I bump up right against what I need for the
Yeah.
month. I'm like, what is that about? I mean, I grew up with that, but I healed some wounds. And then I discovered that I kept saying it. Now, I meant I'm grateful that I can pay my bills because there was a time when I didn't know how I was going to. So I got to expand it. I got to get under what was underneath it, change my belief system, and say, actually, I'm grateful for all the extra that I have, for everything I need and everything I want, and all the extra that I don't even know what to do with, that I get to choose when it shows up. So, belief system, our language indicates our belief system, and we could change the language. If we don't change belief system, we are operating on top of something. So our vibration, then here, what comes out of my mouth, what comes out through my throat chakra into the world and activates the energy, the field, the vibration, maybe the word of, I am grateful for all the money, but underneath it is, and I don't know what to do with more, so I will only have just enough, or whatever the belief system is.
So it's not just
Yeah.
our belief system, it's our limiting beliefs that
Yeah.
control whether or not we have abundance
Mhm.
or lack in our life. So, how do we address limiting belief systems? The other thing that you mentioned was gratitude or gratitude and appreciation,
Yeah.
acknowledging and appreciating what we already have in order to attract more. If we hide it away, if we don't acknowledge it, if we're not grateful for it, I think those energetically also affect whether or not we can bring that money in. So, what
Mhm.
are the steps that move us through the limiting beliefs that actually
Yeah.
reframe our belief system and can help us
Mhm.
to start looking at our relationship with money differently?
Yeah, great. So I'll give you the steps, but I'm also going to put a caveat into it.
Yeah.
There really is an individual journey. So I will give you the steps because they work. And people will say, well, I did the steps and it didn't work. Well, for you, there might be a nuance to it. There might be something that's holding it in place. So I'm going to give everyone a steps. But if steps worked for everyone, we would no longer have people complaining about money or not having enough. We just wouldn't, because they would just take the steps. So, steps. First of all, get a coach, because it's really difficult to do it on your own. We cover it up. I mean, we created limiting beliefs, right? So, through the lens of transformation, something occurs in our life that is traumatic. And traumatic could be anything from true abusive situation, like that we determine is abusive situation, to somebody looking at us funny at the moment when we were most susceptible. And we decided something about ourselves or the world or other people. In that moment, we created a limiting belief. It's limiting because it keeps us in a certain box. So even when I say limiting belief, it's just not open for potential. It just says, like me, at some point in my life, I heard my mom say, people like us don't have that kind of money. It was very innocent in the moment, but I was in the stage of my life where my beliefs were being formed. And I heard that and I decided, if I want to be part of my tribe, I could never have certain amount of money, whatever that means. And a limiting belief was formed because the limit said either I am part of my tribe, my family, my community, and that means I only make so much money, I only have so much money. And if I want to have more money, I will no longer be part of my family, my tribe. It's not logical, but that's the point about beliefs. They usually are not logical. They were created in an emotionally potent moment and spiked sense of and lack of safety or losing something. There are so many different layers to it. But the limiting belief is created. We don't know we're living it out until we begin to address it. And when we begin to address it, it's very difficult to spot it ourselves because we created it to survive. We created it to survive a moment. Now, it might have, again, nobody was hurting me in that moment when I created that limiting belief. But there was part of me that said, in order to survive, I need to be part of my tribe. And in order to be part of my tribe, I need to only make so much money. See how it works? So it's limiting me, and I created it to survive. And in order to survive, I made it unconscious, meaning it's not just out there for me to see it until I do. So that's why coaching is so powerful, because trained Skilled coaches can spot the limiting belief very, very quickly. It comes out through the verbiage, and it's like nuances between the words. We can even spot it. There is energy, there is emotion underneath it. So you uncover the limiting belief. And then you can, the deep work is find out where it was created, when, why. So you are aware that it was a choice you made at some point. It wasn't put on you, it wasn't enforced. You chose it. Because at that moment, if you can see, oh, this is what happened, this is what I chose to believe, I created a limiting belief. Oh, got it. I chose it. If I chose it, then I now have a choice to create something different. So this is the pivotal part there. I was a choice. Now, in that moment, we felt like we had no choice. I get that. But if we can see that we did, now I can change it. Okay, great. What would I like to change it to? Well, so let's go with my people like us don't make that kind of money. What it meant at the time was there was a group of people who were entrepreneurial, and I grew up in a communist country. There is no entrepreneurial in a communist country. So they were like the black market, you know? And what my mom meant was that they were doing something that was against the law. And yes, they were displaying certain level of wealth, but also it was illegal. So what my mom meant, and I know it now, was that she was trying to keep me safe and said something that had me believe that people of our tribe don't make that kind of money. What she actually meant is that they were making money illegally. So that layered another belief on top of it that if you have a lot of money, you probably scammed somebody, you know? So I have layers and layers. So, which is why I do this work, because I worked through so many and I continue to. So create a new belief. So I created that actually money doesn't care who the person is. And I say it in the many different ways, like money is not personal, meaning money doesn't distinguish between what kind of people have it. It doesn't. How do we know that? Bad people, you know, bad people who do things that are harmful to others. Let's call them bad people. People use money to hurt others. To me, that's, you know, that's used in an ethical way. Okay, so money clearly doesn't care about good people, bad people, because there are a lot of really good people with very kind heart who are struggling. So money doesn't care if you're good or bad. Okay. I also live in a neighborhood that abuts a few blocks away, like, well, a little bit more than few blocks away. But I also lived in Manhattan, so literally I was on the brink of really great neighborhood, and 2 blocks over, people could like 20 people lived in tiny apartment. You know what I mean? Like lived on a poverty. So money doesn't care about the address either. Okay, got it. So it's not related to good or bad. It's not related to the address. I also know a lot of people who are living, who are of the same bloodline, the same family by blood, and there is the wealthy one, and then the wealthy one has to support everybody else because they're broke. Oh, okay. So money also doesn't care where the family you are born into. I'm like, so I collected all this evidence to create a whole new belief system about money, that money is not personal. It doesn't look at your birth certificate before it chooses to come into your life. So I created a new belief system. Now, it takes something to live it. Why? Because that original limiting belief is very embedded. And we created a life, an environment that keeps it in place. The people around us speak a certain way to make sure that the belief, and we did it, we created it. I know it's a lot to take on, but I know you know it's true. We created a life that keeps it in place. So in order for us to change the limiting belief into something different that creates based on potentiality and possibility, there is a pretty good chance I'm going to have to change my environment, do some things that feel risky over and over and over again, to then have my nervous system get online that it's safe for me to live with a lot of money. How is
And
that?
yeah, like every question I have, you just blown it out of the water. You took us through the entire flow of what that looks like. And I think that the piece that pops out for me, what I'm hearing you say,
Mhm.
that resonated with me is it's about changing that underlying belief system. And I do call it the BS, the BS.
Yeah.
It's the stories that we tell ourselves. How
Yeah.
do we rewrite our stories? What are you going to do
Mhm.
as the audience, the people that are listening in here? How are you going to identify those stories that you're telling yourself? How are you going to look back and find that time when that story actually happened, when it reframed how it is that you're living your life? And what do you want to do about it? I mean, bottom line, do you want to
Yeah.
change it? Do you want
Yeah.
to improve the situation?
Mhm.
Or are you enjoying staying stuck? I
Yeah.
know what your word is. My word was enough. Like I always
Mm.
strive to have enough. And so again, I butt up against that. There's not extra, there's not more. We're
Just enough.
using different words, but
Yeah.
same outcome. Both of
Yeah.
us didn't have an abundance because of that belief system.
Yeah.
So, there's probably not that many different belief systems. Most parents do the best that they can, and they
Yeah.
don't try to or intend to make
Mhm.
these comments like, oh, we had to rob Peter to pay Paul, or there wasn't
Whew.
enough and we can't
Yeah.
afford it. And, some of those sayings that you had shared, we
Yeah.
need to revisit that. It's
Yeah.
it's what's holding us back. It's what's stopping. How do we
Yeah.
get I don't know if I want to ask this question, how to ask this question. Once we identify that, does it change overnight? Does the flow just start happening? But what's between changing the belief system and actually turning on the money tree, turning on the river
Yeah.
flow of money coming our direction? Is there another step in there?
Yeah, so the step is practicing this new belief, practicing this new belief. And I know we're speaking to entrepreneurs. I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial environment. My parents worked really hard. Even when we moved to America, they worked very, very hard. They still do. But remember, I grew up seeing that people who had entrepreneurial skills and what I told you, it was a black
Criminal.
market. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
criminal. So I literally had a belief system that if you are a business owner, if you are entrepreneurial, you are doing something criminal. So all that didn't come out until I chose to be a business owner. I said, you know what? There was a part of me that always wanted to be on my own, like be responsible for the work that I do in the world and how I do it and what I get paid. And a lot of people are moving from corporate or a job to owning a business. And they may be doing really, really well as an employee because they're not aware of all the limiting beliefs. They could operate in abundance within a certain structure. The paradigm of a job, somebody pays me, there is a company. When they move into creating a business, all of a sudden we become aware of all these things we didn't know were there, which is why I love this topic for entrepreneurs, business owners, and those who are stepping into owning a business because they will bump up against it. So what does it take is practicing. You will not know all your limiting beliefs all at once. So then we do something. And this thing is comparison. We may look at somebody on social media and say, oh my God, she just started a business, 5 clients in the first 24 hours, 6 figures the first month, right? Like we see those stories and then we're like, something's wrong with me. Or maybe she has the solution. I don't even think I have the solution. I think I have things that worked for me and that I use with my clients and that work, but there isn't one size fits all when it comes to beliefs. There is energetics, there is emotion. So there are all these layers that come into play. And then there is how much am I willing to really give up that limiting belief by practicing this new limiting belief, this new, not limiting belief, this new belief that I'm, the limitless belief that I'm implementing. How much am I really willing to say, this is what's true for me, and I'm going to take action that reflects that? So some people will quit their corporate job as the manifestation of, I believe that I am taking action to dismantle this belief. And then they go flat, nothing happens. They actually might go even deeper into a hole. It's part of their journey. Now they'll say it's wrong, it shouldn't be like that, something isn't working. They blame everything they could why it's not working. It's part of the journey. Like you haven't dug deep enough under the limiting beliefs and taken the kind of action that will have you consistently show up with money a certain way. Or maybe you work through some things and then there is a shift in the economy. And remember, if you came from like a consistent employee environment and something worked here as a business owner, but then there was a shift in the environment like COVID or anything like that, so much is happening today to like throw us off. something else might be activated, another limiting belief. And we get to be so consistently be vigilant. Like you ask, what's a step? Practice. No matter what happens, and I learned this on my own up and down. No matter how much money comes in, I do not stop doing my daily steps like gratitude and consistently reading and tuning into things that will feed my mind and my heart and my soul with ideas of abundance, being around conversation of possibility versus lack, being vigilant with my own words, vigilant with my own actions. Am I taking this and it takes commitment. Am I taking this action of investing my money or using my money? And is it coming from, like, I know I still have it. I train myself to consistently not do it, but it's still there. Counting how much money I have and how and what it's good for, like how long is it going to last? What is it going to buy me? And then when will I have to start worrying if I don't generate new? And if something comes from a left field and I use this money, then what will I do in that moment? Will I spiral and say, of course, here we go again? Or will I stay in the high vibration? No, actually, I'm grateful I had it. I'm going to generate more. So, see how many different things that like, I just gave you all these examples because these are pitfalls for new entrepreneurs who think that it's just going to be, oh, it's just going to work because I made this money. I want to replace my corporate income. One of the biggest lies to me, because people think that if they replace the corporate income, then it's going to guarantee something. It's not. It's not.
Yeah,
So,
you're still going to face all of these same challenges. You need to get
yep,
in community, get a coach who's going to help you walk through
yep,
this, figure out what makes you tick. What is your belief
yep,
system?
yep.
The other one that I was thinking as you were talking is self-worth, because when we have that corporate job, we have those accolades, we might have a title, a private office. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of self-worth tied to that. And then all of a sudden you decide to be an entrepreneur and it's you in your bedroom and there's a
Yep.
bed in there and, you're doing the laundry in between and, things, it's a completely different environment.
Yep.
How does self-worth play into being able to shed these limiting beliefs and be a successful entrepreneur, finding our confidence, freeing ourselves of the fears,
Yeah.
and yet stepping into our self-worth? And
Yeah.
it's not tied to our money. Like the self-worth doesn't need to be tied to that money. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So, yes, so it's reversing it, right? Because most people will say, my self-worth comes from how much I have, whether it's money in the bank or the house that I have or the title that I have, that indicates my self-worth. It's the old paradigm, right? That what I have, who I hang out with, what I drive indicates my self-worth. And when we shift into entrepreneurship, yeah, you're right. We are working out of whatever we're working with. There is no boss telling us we did a good job. There is no accolades unless we go seek them out. So there is definitely shifting into digging deep into where does my self-worth come from? And my self-worth inherently comes from who I am. And we get to begin to own it. I have a whole body of work around owning the value of what we create, especially for non-tangible services. Because if we're selling a pair of shoes, we can put a price on it. And based on certain characteristics of leather and craftsmanship and the name, you can assign a value to it and people can't dispute it. When it comes to creating something like software, and I don't mean software coding, I mean software, it's like, the software technology that's us, coaching, healing, the intangible that we are working with. This is where people get tripped up the most. Because even if you are a consultant in a corporate environment, you can put together and package and say, this is what I'll do. And people say, well, in corporate, this is what it's worth. But we have this whole new environment of solopreneurs who are healers, who are, and I know you work in that environment in coaching, healing, artists, creatives, innovators that work with intangible. And you really can't put a price on it until you do. So a lot of people will say, I'm not worth it of that price tag and getting mixed up their own self-worth with the work that they are creating out in the world and putting it out and then requesting to get paid for it. So I'm gonna skip over a lot of different things over there and just go straight to what I teach is there is a life force flowing through us. This life force has limitless value, and we are the ones who assign the value and worth to it. The level to which I claim my worth is the level to which the work that I put out into the world, this life force that flows through me, then I say it's valued at this much because I know the worth of this vessel. It's like many different layers, but hopefully it lands for people. I am the only one who truly can determine the value of the work that I am doing because the life force is limitless. That's why some people can charge million for a 1 year package of coaching, and some people have a hard time charging $100 an hour for a phone call a week. Huge discrepancy. Why? Well, they haven't owned it yet, that actually what they're creating has a tremendous value, and there is a level of skill and learning. I'm not undermining all of that. What happens when we move into entrepreneurship, if we were not at any point this in the environment that taught us that, another layer of it that gets in the way is when you got paid a paycheck, there was an organization that gave you a check or deposited money into your bank account. You are completely disconnected from a human being that at some point made money for this company so the company could pay you. It's dehumanized. When you begin to grow a business or start a business, begin to grow a business, and you are dealing with people directly, you are connected to, it's got to come out of their bank account, it's got to come out of their credit card, even if it's a small business you're working with. All of a sudden, we are coming up against, oh, these people, can they really pay? But I'm taking money out of their pocket. Oh my gosh, I better deliver more than I say because they paid me out of their savings, or they paid me out of, they put on a credit card, whatever it happened. Like all of a sudden, it's humanized. And all of the stories that we might have never had in the job will come up about lack and limitation. And then they become mirrors for us. And if there is any part of us that doesn't feel like we have enough for something like that, then we cannot in a clean space receive for that service. Whew, I just packed a lot there, didn't I?
And I think is you have to identify for you what it is that you're going to bring to the table. What's the value that you create?
Yeah.
If somebody was on their deathbed and a healer came to that person and they knew what they needed, whether it was an herb or an essential oil or healing touch or acupuncture or whatever healing
Mhm.
modality, and they applied that healing modality and the person recovered,
Yeah.
there's a tremendous amount of value there. So
Yep.
when we know what it is that we do, what kind of outcomes we can create for people, when we start to actually value the stuff that we do and put a price tag on it, just like that
Mhm.
corporate job, there's a
Yeah.
job description and it entails, these are all the things that are included, and there's a value to the company, what they're willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
And I think at times, us as entrepreneurs, we don't take that step. We don't decide and decipher what it exactly it is our outcomes are. What problems do
Mhm.
we solve? And what is the person on the other
Mhm.
end, what do they receive from that? And those
Yeah.
folks that have received value from you will tell you what that was worth to them. Some of them may even say it's priceless and you won't be able
Yeah.
to figure out how to put a price
Yeah.
tag on it. So, but you have to take that step. And when
Yeah.
we try to arbitrarily pull it out of our heads or PFA, pluck from the air, it doesn't work because it's not in alignment with who we are and what it is that we're offering.
Yeah. And that's what a self-worth gets in a way too, right? Because if I don't feel worthy, then I project it onto other people through my work. Well, clearly my work isn't worthy. They shouldn't be paying that much. It's not worth that much. So this is where the self-worth, because that's where we started. This is where the
Yeah.
self-worth starts getting wonky. And it takes work. And again, vigilance. We were not trained to value ourselves unless we were lucky to grow up in a certain environment and had examples of people who humbly valued themselves, because that's important too. Like some people know how to value themselves, but they do it in a way that is arrogant, and that doesn't work either, especially in this new environment we are creating. Being
Yeah.
humble while also owning what we create and the value of it, that's going to be the frequency that we are creating, and that's going to be the new level to which we want to aspire. I am humble, yet I know the value and the worth of what I create. And a lot of times, skill And knowledge is very important, but it's actually the care, which is the life force. It's the energy that I infuse it with. It's the amount of care. It's the diligence. It's the devotion to my work. It's how I care for myself. I mean, it goes all the way back there. If I don't
It
care for
does.
myself well
Mhm.
enough, then I'm not a worthy vessel. Then anything that flows through me is just to, just to check the box. Then it's not going to be congruent with then receiving money in a certain way that we would like to, that we actually need in order to live a life to a certain standard so we can then serve. So it's a journey and it's such a big topic. And I think the level to which we can begin to unpack it and live it and not live it from scarcity. Like I think even saying I want to replace my paycheck is from scarcity
Scarcity.
because
Mhm.
yeah, I learned how to live within that. It's
Yeah. I think the
limiting.
word, yeah, the word is to me is it's flow and expand, flow and expand.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when we flow, when we're flowing with energy, when we're flowing with all of that, then money can flow back to us. It's that
Yeah. Yeah.
there's not, yeah, there's not roadblocks in the way. There's not limiting beliefs. It's flow
Yeah.
and then expanding as we expand our knowledge, our skills, our commitment to our job, as we
Capacity.
expand, yes,
Yeah.
then our income can expand. The people we serve can expand. The people that are going to
Yeah.
join the mission, the vision, the purpose, part of the team will expand. So we serve more people. So for me,
Yeah.
it's like it's this flow and this expansion, which brings me to probably my last question. So we don't run out of time is what role does generosity play in the cycle of abundance? And how do women entrepreneurs specifically um, be generous without feeling depleted? I know I've been guilty
Oh,
of this, and I don't think I have any clients who have not fallen into this. They all do. Like they feel
I
depleted,
bet.
but they have this need to be generous and share and give of their talents. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, again, a whole Pandora box, but let me see if I can speak to it poignantly. We mistaken what generosity is. And
Mhm.
so one, we mistaken what generosity is. Two, we doing to get. So a lot of people, and we do it because we were raised like that, especially if we do it chronically, like we know this is what we do. Oh, so many layers are opening up. Like they coming in is even if I speak to it. So I'll speak to as many as I can. One, we believe that the more we give, the more we'll be loved, accepted, and at some point somebody will take a mercy on us and pay us. Literally.
Yeah.
Two, and I know it's like really two, we don't if we don't feel worthy, we feel like we have to overgive, overgive, overgive to make up for the lack of self-worth and the lack of perceived value because that's what we put on our work. So we'll keep overgiving it. Okay. Third, and this is the last one I'm going to say, a lot of people give because they think that if they give, they will get. So they're not actually truly generous, they are conditional. I get it. That was me too. I was super and there is another part of it too. It just came in, so I'm gonna share it. We're not comfortable with having, so we have all those stories like we can't have that much, whatever, right? So we need to get rid of it. And whether we get rid of the money that we have because we can't hold that much, or we keep like supporting other people because if we have a spare moment, it's too much for us to have a spare moment. I should be doing something with it. So there are all these layers. So we mistaken generosity. True generosity is not attached to anything. I am generous because I want to be. And do I know that giving and receiving works both ways? Absolutely. If I don't give, I will not receive. And receiving is giving and all of that, right? There are like exercises that I've practiced about how when we receive something with like, oh, you shouldn't have, then we are literally saying it's not okay to receive and it's not okay to give. So that stops the flow. So just a simple example. But a lot of people will start then giving because they're like, oh my God, I should give more. I should give more. So more comes to me. But they're still giving it from their restricted place, from giving to get versus no. These two are completely separate. They work together, but I'm not attached to where I give. Like I just gave yesterday, I was like, oh, I want to give $50 to this one YouTube channel that I like to listen. They have you just I don't, they have like donate to us. I'm like, oh, I really like what they put out. I just sent $50. Like I was walking my dog and I'm like, I don't know why, but I just felt like I want to do it. I came home and I did it. I have no idea what it's going to create. I just felt like doing it. Now, I don't know what it's creating in the field and I'm not attached to it. But me being open to generously give is going to generate something, but I didn't do it for that. What I used to do for work in my business, because there is a concept of the more you give, the more you let people know what you do, the more they'll come and pay for something. There is also the opposite. You shouldn't give your best stuff for free because then people won't pay for the other stuff. All of that, again, it's individual. It may work for some, not for others. For me, I love doing these interviews. They fill me up so much that I'm like, I don't care if nothing ever comes from it. I don't care if nobody ever comes my way and says, I want to work with you. Most of the time they do, so I already know. But there was a time in my life where I calculated. And I would say, if I do one interview, I get 5 clients. And I kept that calculation going. One more interview, 5 more clients. And it kept up for a little while and then it dried up. And I'm like, oh, that's because I started to operate from, and there is strategy. I mean, we're business owners. We need to know how it works to a degree. But I started to attach to it versus just really still being in a flow and generosity of just sharing what's true for me. And then my give is that people benefit and something opens up for them, and that's receiving. For me, somebody listens to something and something opens up for them, and I go into this thinking if just one person gets something out of it, then I get something by knowing I made a difference. Everything else, it just will be what will be. So we get to be different with generosity. Okay, one last thing I'm going to say. Generosity is huge for me. I can't tell you how because it's part of the work that's kind of, if I gave it away, it would blow it. But generosity is one of huge values for me. And I didn't know it until a few years ago. And I was a very, very giving person. So I thought, but I wasn't generous of spirit. I did not have generosity of spirit. I was withholding my love and I was withholding my joy and I was withholding my energy. So I gave away my money, I donated, I would help everyone who asked. All you had to say is blink in my direction that you didn't have money for something, and I would pay for you. Because I was that in tune and I was so giving. But I wasn't giving, I wasn't generous with my spirit. And true generosity that I have been learning for the last decade or so is generosity of spirit. I don't have to give money and time to be extremely generous with my spirit where I am in the moment, pouring my energy where I am. And a lot of people will give, but also thinking where they're not giving, or feeling guilty about who's missing out and what they're missing out on. That's not generosity. That's the condition. Generosity means in this moment, this is where I am. Nothing else matters but this. I am generously pouring energy into this conversation. That's the generosity that we get to lean into and own the value of, especially if we chronically overgive.
Beautifully said. Oh my gosh, there's so many things I want to unpack with this, but I know we only have a couple of minutes here. The flow, it comes back to flow. I'm going to bring that word back. I'm going to rename this whole thing because you mentioned it a couple of times in there, how the energy flows through us. And when we allow that to flow through us and we pour into other people, we are giving, and we don't need to know where that comes back. That's the other piece I want to tie it to. You may have given that $50 over here, but who knows where that 500, 5,000, $5 million may come because of the trickle effect generosity has when we become detached of it. It's like throwing a pebble in the pond and the ripples go out. We never know where those ripples will go. And that's the beauty of generosity. But when you think of transactions, if I do this, I get this. If I do this, I get this. It's that transactional thing that we identify with for sales. People don't want to be sold to. And that's what it feels like. They know it. That authenticity is there. They know they're being sold to when you're doing it with that in the back of your mind, that what's my transactional experience here? What am I going to receive receive out of this transaction. And then the other one that comes to mind is there's universal laws. I think there's like, I don't know how many universal laws there are, but there's this universal law of reciprocity. What we put out, we get back. And so when we allow that to ebb and flow, where we give of energy, give of our spirit, give of our joy, give of our love, give of our compassion, and if you want, give of your money if you can afford it.
Yeah.
There are people who would, but choose who you're going to pour into, because
Yeah.
let them pour. I mean, you don't have to, but for me,
Oh yeah,
I'm
choose
choosing
it.
to pour.
Yes.
I'm choosing to
Yeah.
pour into women internationally around the world to encourage them to be financially independent, to find a way to have a side gig, to have your own income. Don't
Yeah.
wake up like I did at 50 some years old and not have a way to take care of yourself. It just doesn't work. So
Yeah.
I I don't get paid to do podcasts. I'm doing like 11 podcasts this week to try to pre-record for,
Yeah.
next month while I'm gone. And it's consuming all my time. Like I moved all paying clients away so that I can do this because it matters. It's the importance of the work. So
Yeah.
when you were talking about that generosity and how you can be fully present and pour in, those are some of the things that came up to me.
Yeah.
Just totally landed on my heart. And I know you are one busy lady, and for me to land you here on my podcast is an honor and a pleasure and a beauty and a gift of generosity to me. And I want to thank you for that and give you the last word. Where can people find you? How do people work with you if they want to work with you? And any final thoughts that you have for the audience? The stage is yours.
Yeah, I love it. So really quick, you can find me on socials at Anna the Manifesting Artist, double N, at Anna the Manifesting Artist. I'm on Instagram and on Facebook. You can check out my website, annakowalska.com. There are ways to benefit there. And my final thoughts, oh, I have so many, but the one thing that I've been saying for several years now, and I think it's increasingly more important, is money is here to teach us so much right now, and it's our last frontier. And the more that we are in ownership of our relationship with money, the less we are susceptible to everything else that's going on. There is a way to keep us under control when our money is coming from calculated resources, like a job or a system. And without getting too deeply into politics, I grew up in a communist country, so it's very real for me how money can control. And we all live with that reality to a degree. But I'm a huge stand that right now and going forward, more and more, and especially women, take true ownership of the value they provide for the world, to the world, and create a way to be in relationship with money flow and be responsible for it and say, I am going to, doesn't matter if you start with very little and have big vision, you don't know how you're going to get there, start it. There are so many ways to be supported, so many coaches, so many resources. You alone, Lisa, have so much to offer. So stop selling out to someday, or, I don't know how. Take the steps, be in ownership of you have something here that's unique and important and big, and begin to get paid for it, because it really matters. And that's the energy of the future. Those who are choosing to be responsible for how they be with money, and then how we are going to create our reality going forward by those who are consciously in their heart, the leaders who will make a difference, versus those from the olden days who are still breathing, still perceived as in charge. They're going away, and we don't want to do things that way. There is a new way, and it's going to be up to people like you and me and your listeners. So thank you for having me and allowing me space to share.
Beautiful. So join the movement, ladies. If you are on the fence, I hope we've given you enough encouragement to take that step, believe in yourself, get help, and join the movement. And come on back next week, because we're going to have more guests. We're talking about money all this month. Anna's just kicking it off for us, but we're going to go bing, bang, bang for four more weeks. So come on back, learn about sacred abundance and how money is important in your life, but not in the old way of thinking, shifting the paradigm to the new way of thinking. Thanks so much for watching. Come on back next week, everyone.